It was 1:47 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I almost ignored it. Unknown number, one voicemail, no text. Half asleep, I pressed play. At first, there was silence. Then, his voice. My husband, Ethan. Soft laughter. Not the kind he used with me, a different one, lighter, almost youthful. Then a woman whispered, "She has no idea, does she?" Ethan. Of course not. She actually thinks I'm working late. By next month, everything will be in my name. My blood went cold. A shuffle, a clink of glasses. Then Ethan's voice dropped to a tone I had never heard before, cold, calculated. "Once she signs the trust documents, we move the funds. She'll never notice a thing." His words were airy, confident, practiced. The woman, "And after that?" "After that," Ethan said, "she'll be the one left with nothing." The message ended. My heart pounded so violently I felt it in my throat. I played the voicemail again, and again, and again, hoping I'd misheard, hoping it was some sick joke. But every replay carved the same truth deeper into my bones. He wasn't just cheating, he was planning to erase me. He thought I was clueless, he thought I was weak. But what he didn't know, what he could never predict, was that this single, accidental voicemail wasn't the beginning of his plan. It was the beginning of mine. In the quiet darkness of our bedroom, I stared at the man sleeping next to me. Ethan looked peaceful, innocent even, his breathing steady and slow. If someone walked in, they'd think he was the perfect husband, handsome, responsible, successful. But the voicemail echoed like a ghost in my ears. Everything in my name. She'll be left with nothing. This man, the one whose arm rested casually across my waist, was preparing to financially gut me while smiling in my face. I should have cried. I should have screamed. But I didn't. In that moment, something inside me hardened, something sharp, unbreakable. For years, Ethan had told me he handled the big stuff: bills, taxes, investments. "You focus on your career," he'd say. "Let me take care of the rest." I thought it was love. Now I understood it was control. Strategic, intentional control. The kind that doesn't happen overnight. I carefully slid out of bed, walked to the bathroom, and locked the door. My hands shook as I replayed the voicemail one more time, memorizing every word, every tone, every breath. Then I opened my notebook. I didn't write paragraphs. I wrote steps, precise, calculated steps. Step 1, pretend nothing happened. Step 2, collect everything, every document, every password, every lie. Step 3, build a case, quietly. Step 4, strike when he feels safest. This wouldn't be emotional revenge, no screaming, no crying. This would be surgical. He wanted to leave me with nothing, so I decided to take everything first. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing had happened: fried eggs, toast, the usual routine. Ethan walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, kissing my forehead. Sweetheart. A word that suddenly tasted like poison. "Morning," I replied, hiding the tremor in my voice. He sat down, picked up his fork, and, "You're amazing. I don't know what I'd do without you." Oh, the irony. I forced a smile. "You'd survive." He, unaware of how true that statement had become. While he ate, I studied him, his movements, his expressions. I never realized how performative he was. Every gesture calculated, every smile rehearsed. He wasn't messy, he wasn't reckless. A man like Ethan didn't accidentally butt-dial a voicemail at 1:47 a.m., which meant something else. Someone else sent it. Someone wanted me to know. But why? I gently placed a cup of coffee in front of him. "Big day at work?" "Yeah," he replied, reaching for the cup. "I might be home late again." Of course he would. I nodded. "That's fine. I'll see you tonight." Inside, I felt nothing. No sadness, no love, no nostalgia. only purpose. The moment he left the driveway, I grabbed my notepad and sat at the dining table. Today wasn't about emotions. Today was reconnaissance. He thought I was clueless, but he had just handed me his entire blueprint, and I intended to use it. I began with the office upstairs, the place Ethan claimed was too messy for me to organize. He'd always discouraged me from going near it. That was my first red flag. Inside, everything was immaculate. Meticulously arranged folders, color-coded binders, locked drawers, a small safe under the desk. Not messy, hidden. I started with the top drawer, receipts, business cards, ordinary things, but the second drawer held something more interesting. A thick folder labeled Client Transfers, Pending. Inside were printed copies of transfer forms, trust documents, and digital signatures. Nearly all of them bore Ethan's name. But 2 forms had mine, my signature. Except it wasn't mine. I held the papers to the light. The signatures were similar, but just off enough to expose the forgery. My heart didn't race this time. Instead, a cold calmness settled over me. Confirmation wasn't painful. It was clarifying. Then I found something else, a single sticky note tucked behind the folder. File by 28th. She won't know. She. Me. The pieces aligned. The trust, the transfers, the refinanced accounts, all under his name. I photographed everything, every page, every forged signature. Then I checked the desk's underside, and that's when I found the real clue. A hidden USB drive taped beneath the drawer. I pocketed it, locked the office behind me, and sat on the staircase for a moment. This wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even greed. This was a full-scale operation. But he had made one fatal mistake. He underestimated my intelligence, and now I had my first real weapon. That evening, after Ethan left for his late shift, I plugged the USB into my laptop. A folder popped open instantly. Its title made my stomach twist. Insurance. Inside were dozens of subfolders, each with a name I didn't recognize. And in every folder, voice recordings, screenshots, and emails. Conversations with clients, financial files, texts between Ethan and his secret partner, the same woman from the voicemail. Her name was listed in a folder labeled Mara, Final Phase. Final phase? I clicked the most recent file, a voice recording only a minute long. Mara's voice first. She still doesn't suspect anything? Ethan chuckled darkly. No, Emily is too trusting. Once she signs, I'll move everything. And then she's done. Done. They spoke of me like I was a burden, a problem, a task to complete. I clicked another file. This one was an email draft addressed to his private attorney, an attorney I didn't know he had. Subject, Transfer of Primary Assets, Confidential. He was already preparing to leave me. The messages revealed dates, times, numbers, everything I needed, evidence beyond anything he could explain away. But at the bottom of the last folder was a file labeled voice_memo_forward. My breath caught. It was the voicemail he'd accidentally left on my phone. Forwarded. Not accidental at all. Mara had forwarded it to me. Why? What did she gain by exposing him? It didn't matter. If she thought she could use me as a pawn, she greatly miscalculated. Because in that moment, listening to their voices, something inside me sharpened. Revenge wasn't enough. I wanted justice, strategic, undeniable, life-altering justice. And Ethan had just unknowingly supplied every tool I needed. The next morning, I took a personal day from work. Not to rest, to gather everything. I started with the bank, a quiet branch, a manager who knew me. I need to review some recent transactions, I said. His eyes softened. Of course, Mrs. Hale, right this way. Within minutes, I had printed statements of every account Ethan and I shared, and several he'd opened under my name without my knowledge. Unauthorized credit lines, transfers to accounts I'd never seen, signatures that weren't mine. The evidence was piling higher and higher. Next, I visited a family law attorney recommended by a colleague, a quiet, sharp woman named Katrina who didn't waste time. Her office smelled like leather and fear, the fear of people who walked in thinking they were trapped, but walked out realizing they weren't. I placed everything on her desk, the forged documents, the recordings, the USB. Katrina listened. She didn't interrupt. When it was over, she leaned back and folded her hands. "This," she said calmly, "isn't just infidelity. This is financial conspiracy, identity fraud, and marital asset theft." I exhaled shakily. "What do I do?" She smiled, slow, assured, lethal. "You don't confront him. You don't warn him. You give him rope." "Rope?" "To hang himself," she finished. "We'll freeze accounts, file for protection, prepare criminal charges, and ensure every asset is documented in your favor." Strategic, precise, exactly what I needed. When I left her office, I wasn't the same woman who had walked in. I had direction, a plan, power. Ethan thought he was playing chess. He had no idea I had just become the queen on the board. That weekend, I became the version of myself Ethan expected. Warm, loving, clueless. I cooked his favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I even brought him coffee while he worked in his busy office. He never noticed that I now knew every passcode, every drawer combination, every document he tried to hide. While he typed away, no doubt messaging Mara, I quietly photographed every file he opened, every password saved on his screen, every new draft of the trust transfer. He praised me for being supportive and understanding. I had to bite my tongue not to laugh. One evening, while he showered, I stepped into the closet and opened a small lockbox he thought I didn't know about. Inside were 3 passports. 2 were his, 1 was mine. But the name on my passport wasn't mine. It was forged, designed to match a separate identity he was building for me. A financial ghost, someone removed from everything. My pulse didn't quicken. This only confirmed what I already knew. Ethan wasn't planning to divorce me. He was planning to disappear me, financially, legally, and socially. But here's the thing about men like Ethan. They think they're smarter than everyone. They think no one sees through their charm. They think women are blind when we're quiet. They forget silence is not stupidity. Silence is strategy. And I was almost ready for the final step. Not yet, but soon. Very soon. On Tuesday evening, Ethan came home unusually cheerful. He placed his briefcase on the counter and poured himself a drink. "We need to talk," he said. The phrase every betraying spouse uses before the final blow. I swallowed. "About what?" He smiled, took my hands in his, and said, "I've been thinking about our future. I found a way to simplify things financially. I just need you to sign a couple of forms this week." There it was, the moment he had been building toward. "The trust documents?" I asked lightly. He blinked. "You know about those?" "Of course," I lied smoothly. "You mentioned them before. You said it would help us." He relaxed, completely unaware that Katrina had already filed an injunction preventing any changes without my consent. "Right," he said. "I'll bring the papers by Friday." Friday. Perfect. He thought he was setting a trap. He didn't know I had already buried the ground beneath him. But the real trigger came later that night. His phone lit up face down on the nightstand. I watched as he shifted in his sleep. Then, slowly, I leaned over and unlocked it using Face ID. A message popped up at the top. "Mara, Friday, your wife signs, then she's gone." Gone. Not divorced. Not separated. Gone. In that moment, any lingering softness I had evaporated. This wasn't betrayal. This was annihilation. But if Ethan wanted war, I would end it like a general, strategic, ruthless, efficient. Wednesday morning, I visited Katrina again. She reviewed the new files and nodded approvingly. "He's accelerating," she said. "That's good. The faster he moves, the worse it will be for him." We prepared. Emergency financial freeze, identity theft filing, fraud charges, a civil claim, a divorce petition that would leave him with nothing. But most importantly, a warrant request for the forged documents. When evening came, I returned home calm. Too calm. Ethan noticed. "You seem relaxed," he said, studying me. I smiled. "Just thinking about our future." He kissed my cheek. "I promise, after Friday, everything will be perfect." Oh, it would. Just not for him. He went upstairs to shower. I used the time to position my final pieces. I transferred every recording to a secure cloud. I backed up every document. I pre-sent every file to Katrina with scheduled delivery. And I placed Ethan's forged passport, his criminal weapon, where investigators would easily find it. Finally, I prepared a small envelope. Inside it were photocopies of everything, every forgery, every signature, every whispered plan. I sealed it. On Friday, he thought I would be signing, but he would be the one holding the pen and signing the end of his own life. Ethan came home early, dressed nicely, smiling like a man who believed he had already won. "Big day," he said. "Let's sit in the living room." I followed him, carrying nothing but my calm. He placed the documents on the table. "These are simple," he lied. "Just sign at the tabs." I picked up the pen, twirled it, set it down. "Before I sign," I said softly, "I want to play you something." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I pressed a button on my phone. His voicemail filled the room. His smile faded. "Emily, wait." I raised a hand. "Don't interrupt." Then I played the recording of him and Mara discussing the forged trust. He froze, followed by the recording of him saying I would be gone. His skin drained of color. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking. "I can explain." "You won't need to," I said. "They will." "Who?" A knock at the door answered for me. Ethan turned slowly. "Detectives." "Ethan Hale?" one said. "We have a warrant for your arrest on suspicion of financial fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy." Ethan's knees buckled. "Mara, she set me up," he stammered. I shook my head. "No, she just forwarded the voicemail. You set yourself up." As they handcuffed him, he looked at me. "You ruined me." "No," I said quietly. "You ruined yourself. I just documented it." Within 24 hours, Ethan's entire empire crumbled. The detectives found forged documents, illegal transfers, 2 fake passports, evidence of client manipulation, screenshots of conspiracy with Mara. Katrina filed every motion simultaneously. By Monday morning, his accounts were frozen, his job terminated, his attorney disbarred, his business license suspended. Meanwhile, Mara panicked and turned on him completely, offering full testimony in exchange for immunity. Ethan tried to call me from the holding center. I declined every attempt. He wanted to destroy my life quietly. I destroyed his legally, strategically, irreversibly. When his attorney requested a negotiation, Katrina simply said, "There's nothing to negotiate." Ethan wasn't just losing assets, he was losing freedom. But I wasn't finished. I had one final step, a step that would ensure he never manipulated another woman again. That afternoon, I provided the detectives with the USB titled Insurance. It contained proof of Ethan's long-standing pattern of fraud with Mara long before me. It exposed years of crimes far beyond our marriage. The detective looked at me and said, "You may have saved more people than you realize." For the first time in weeks, I breathed deeply. Ethan had spent years building a secret life, and now he was living in a 6x8 cell. 3 months later, my life finally felt quiet, peaceful, clean. The divorce finalized in my favor. The house, the accounts, the car, everything Ethan tried to take from me legally belonged to me. He had nothing left. Not Mara, Not his reputation, not his career, not even his freedom. He was sentenced to 4 years for felony fraud and identity theft. People often ask me how I stayed so calm through everything, how I didn't cry, how I didn't scream, how I didn't fall apart. I tell them the truth. When someone tries to erase you, you don't rage, you don't panic, you don't crumble, you calculate. The voicemail that exposed my husband's secret life didn't break me. It revealed me. The woman I always was, the woman he never saw coming. Some nights I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the quiet street outside my home, the home Ethan tried to steal. And I smile. Because I didn't just win, I ended the game entirely. And I did it with precision, with intelligence, with silence, the same silence he mistook for weakness. But silence is a weapon, and I learned to wield it perfectly. The voicemail was his warning, but it was my beginning. If you enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe for more. Thank you.